Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
First deep flying high, fast cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Needy boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Where are you at? Good setters. Got me on the mic now. Let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Open the chimes in, let's go deep. Young blood's rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream high. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're more better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Gardi3, and welcome to the And One Podcast. And of course, just like every week, joining, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great on a Thursday. It's M1, so all we're doing is talking hoops. Let's get into it.
And you know how we got to start, Mo. Underrated player of the week. Who do you got for us this week?
My underrated player this week is actually a player from the past. She was a stalwart for the early the Houston Comets, back when the Houston Comets were actually dominating the WNBA. She's Cynthia Cooper. Cynthia Cooper was just a walking bucket. But she was always one of those players that was overshadowed most of her career. She was one of the dominant players in high school. She goes to USC, and guess who her teammate ends up being? Cheryl Miller, and that is Cheryl Miller's team from that point on, along with the McGee sisters. She gets to the pros. She's on the Comets, which is awesome, but then she's flanked by Tina Thompson and God, what's her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. She's like one of the great defensive players of all time. I can't remember her name right now. But anyway, on that Comets team, when they were dominant, every time they needed a clutch basket, a big shot, a big play, it was Cynthia Cooper that came through in the clutch. And look, it says something. Remember, the Comets didn't just three-peat. I think they four-peated. So, and I'm sure that hasn't been duplicated since. So, yeah, that's my player. It's Cynthia Cooper, who kind of gets lost in the shuffle when you think of the great players and great scorers in WNBA history. It's Cynthia Cooper, just a walking bucket.
Hey, and you know what? That's a great shout-out, especially with this week, the news of the Houston Comets making their return to Houston. So that's looking great, Mo. I'm looking forward to that. My league pass for WNBA just renewed yesterday for the year, so definitely be keeping up with all the action. Mo, you know what? My underrated players. I'm gonna go with 3 different players because I feel like I need to shout them out. Because look, if anybody doesn't know, I'm a Bucks fan, and I've been pretty hard on my team this year, and I feel like that's been justified. But I feel like I got to give some guys credit, especially after last night. last night's game, shorthanded against the Houston Rockets, everybody thought, including me, thought we were just going to be blown out by 30 again. But we had some big time performers step up. It's a lot of people I didn't see coming either. As we got Ousmane Dieng from the Thunder at the deadline, he was terrific last night. Got MVP Pete Nance, and I also want to shout out Cormac Ryan for his performance last night against the Rockets. Just a truly incredible attempt to step up. Obviously, we still lost by 6, but watching all these young guys step up gives me some hope for the future.
I like that. I like that kind of shout out because you're right. You get a young guy and you give him some playing time, and before you know it, you found a couple of guys that can be key part of your rotation going into next season. So I love the fact that young guys are getting an opportunity to play. They're stepping into those roles, and they're doing their things. That's a great shout out.
I'd say, Mo, before we get to the NBA this week, why not talk about some WNBA? And because that ties into my do better with Mo better moment of the week. Mo, what are the Chicago Sky doing? Look, I'm not even kidding. What are they doing? They made a trade with both expansion teams. To Toronto, they send the 26th pick in the draft as long as they don't pick anybody from their roster pool, from their unprotected slot. And then they also made a trade with Portland. Portland receives the 17th pick in the draft. Chicago gets the 21st pick, so they move back 4 spots. But Portland also will not touch anybody from their unprotected list. Well, this team was 10-34. What are they doing? I'm sorry. To me, it's not worth moving back and just setting picks on fire to protect the roster, because I feel like there's just not enough people they have on the back end of that roster that are worth protecting.
I'm lost because this might be the first time in basketball history that a front office said, we can't lose any of our rotation players off of a lottery team that won 10 games. Who's fighting you for those players? You won 10 games. Ain't nobody coming for nobody off your roster, especially off your bench. And you went and thought, we got to pay off the expansion team because we don't want them to break this squad. Look, if they end up going to the finals and winning it all, then you and I are going to have to come back on and issue a huge apology and go, you guys saw something we didn't see. And you know what I mean? It'll be that kind of thing. Now, do I think we're going to ever have to issue that apology? Not even close. I almost feel like they're literally self-sabotaging. It did not make sense. This is one of those moves or those decisions you make where you go, sometimes you're better off with the moves you don't make. This was one of those moves that didn't need to be made.
And it's almost like this was so unprompted too, because I really doubt that Portland and company were looking to poach too many players off Chicago anyway. And then they come calling with that offer. I'd be like, yeah, sure, we won't take anyone. We'll move up 4 slots in the draft, sure.
Right.
I know there's not technically a lot of a lot of first rounders even don't make WNBA teams, but at the same time, there's real WNBA talent drafted that, in that later range every year. So it just seems odd to be like, yeah, no, we got to protect these guys when genuinely I feel like you could literally just draft their replacements and be perfectly okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I completely agree. Look, we talk about this a lot, about players being drafted to cultures and good cultures or strong cultures or weak, flailing cultures. I think the problem with Chicago starts with their front office and trickles down to the product on the court.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's really unfortunate how that works. We're gonna get the expansion draft soon. It's gonna be awesome. So yeah, I just had to bring that up, Mo, because I'm genuinely lost as to what's going on down there.
you know what? Them doing what they did was very NBA like. That's an NBA drama like move. So I'm kind of shocked too. But look, like I said, with respect, maybe they just know something you and I don't know.
Hey, you know what? Maybe. Say, speaking of the draft, Mo, I want to show you something, and I want to make a statement, and I want to see if you agree or disagree with me. Somebody, Underdog Sports, they decided to make this 2024 NBA redraft. And I just want to say, Mo, am I crazy if I say that the best player in this draft so far has been Donovan Clingan? Like, Castle's been great. Sauer George have been great. But Clingan has been just such a two-way monster for the Portland Trailblazers.
I would say Klingon. I'd be okay if Klingon was one, but I'm not mad that Castle's one because I think Castle has been just as impactful. Look, Wemby's their best player and he gets a lot more of the pub, but I keep telling people really watch the Spurs play. Wemby talks to talk, and he certainly is their best player, but Castle's their alpha. That dude right there is a dog. Like I would actually be shocked if Castle didn't make one of the all NBA defensive teams to go along with what he does offensively. So yeah, I Klingon has a strong case, but I think Castle's case is just as strong.
Hey, you know what? I don't hate it. Like I said, I do like Castle too, but man, I think it's just seeing him at 4 is what really irks me because I'm like, dude, this guy's a legitimate argument to be he definitely has the better argument to be best in the class over both Keyshawn, George and Sar.
I think George has been kind of a pleasant surprise because we both like what he can do offensively, but we also lament the fact that he doesn't give you anything on the other end. Alex Sarr has been a disappointment to me because I can see all the talent in the world. I can. But there's a part of me when I watch him play, and I hope this changes in many, many ways. And this is not a good thing. He reminds me of DeAndre Ayton, and that's not good. So I hope that he gets in the gym and he puts in the work because I don't want another DeAndre Ayton. Alex Sarr should be a guy that develops into a perennial all-star. At a minimum, he should do that. I'm not even putting a ceiling on him because really, if he fulfilled out his potential, he'd be a perennial all-NBA player.
No, that's fair. I'd say also kind of shocks me that someone like AJ Mitchell of the Thunder isn't on here. I think he's been much better than Rich Sure.
Oh, I like
right.
Yeah, he's a hoop. That AJ Mitchell, I love you, bro. Good shout out, partner. Good shout out. AJ Mitchell plays like a guy that's been a 5-year veteran. And he's not a 5-year veteran, but he plays with that kind of poise. Terrific defender, playmaker, can score when asked upon. You know what the Thunder are really good at? Not just drafting players, but they're really good at picking up young players that have been discarded from other teams and getting more out of them. I think Jared McCain should be in here for sure. And the fact is, Jared McCain, the Sixers just gave up on him, and all he's done is step into the Thunder's rotation and become a key part of their rotation. So, yeah, look, I like Klingon. I can go either way with Klingon and Stephen Castle at 1. I would not have Sarr and George 2 and 3. I'm with you. I would probably have. I actually like the kid from Chicago, Bucelis. I think he's made a step forward. What's up, Jory? What's up, Gabriel?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for dropping through. But yeah, I mean, look, there's some talented players, but I don't think you can go wrong if you say Klingon or Castle. I think Jared McCain has done well. I think Reed Shepard's not a finished product. I think when it's all going to be said and done, he's going to be a terrific player. He's not done developing. The guys who have all the talent in the world that should be like ascending, but he's doing it in a very slow fashion is Khalil Ware. I look at Khalil Ware and go, why isn't Khalil Ware thought about the way that we talk about Alex Sarr? Khalil Ware could be, I'm not saying he could be Wemby, I'm not being, but it isn't crazy to say that he couldn't be Wemby light, right? Like Khalil Ware should be putting up double doubles and doing similar things. He has that kind of raw talent. It's just a matter of, is he ever going to fulfill that? But he has tons of talent. I think Ron Holland is a steal. That's another dog that Detroit got. He's a steal. I think Ricochet, I don't want to call nobody a bust, but let's just call him a disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. My frustration with Khalil Ware is just Khalil Ware himself. Like, he is so talented, but he just like loses focus for random stretches in games. And he gets so like he just like stops trying. Like, he has so much raw talent, like you said, but he reminds me of another Miami Heat center, Hassan Whiteside. He has the same motor as Hassan Whiteside.
I knew where you were going. And maybe that's not talked about enough. You can have talent, but that thing in your chest, that dog factor that makes you go, I have talent and I'm that dude on top of that, I think that's missing from Khalil Ware. I think it's missing from Alex Sarr. Hopefully that can change. I'll say this. If Khalil Ware and Alex Sarr worked as hard as Zach Edey does, they would be superstars already. Zach Edey is not the most talented big man in basketball, but he puts in all the work. And I'm convinced, even now, I know he's had injuries, Zach Edey's going to have a good career. I'm not saying star or superstar, but he's absolutely going to have a really good, long, impactful career.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I thought this was just a fun graphic to pull up. By the way, speaking of prospects too, Mo, we've been having our own fun little draft prospects tournament over on the And1 Facebook page. So far, like I said, I did randomize it again, so it's from last week. So our new buys are Wemby and LeBron. And right now we got a couple of one round 2 matchup set. Cade Cunningham, you guys picked him as a better prospect over Paulo, so he gets the pleasure of getting matched up against Wemby in the second round. And
matchup.
Yeah, you guys picked Elton Brand over Cam Boozer, so Elton Brand moves on. And right now, the matchup that we have going on the And1 Facebook page and the And1 Twitter page is you can pick between, would you draft John Wall or Zion Williamson if you were a GM? Honestly, Mo, I love John Wall. I even still play that one little like niche song that the Wizards made about him, do the John Wall. But
yeah,
as a prospect, I think it's got to be Wemby. I mean, not Wemby. It's got to be Zion.
I agree. As a prospect, I think you should go. It's easy. I think it should be Zion. Obviously, how their careers turned out, even though John Wall's was cut short because of the injuries. But before the injuries, John Wall was a blur. And John Wall was an elite defender. And I'm not just talking about play the passing. A lot of guys can play the passing lane and not be good defenders. John Wall was a good on the ball defender. Like he was legit. But yeah, if we're going off of prospects, it's got to be Zion. Think about the hype machine that Zion came with and all the different videos. It's Zion by a landslide, in my opinion.
And then, and the other matchup that happened, Kyrie Irving beat AJ Dimebasta in the first round. You know what's funny, Mo? I this might have get me fired as a GM, and that's okay. But just based off prospects, I probably would have drafted Dimebasta. Now, Kyrie obviously ends up having a fantastic NBA career, but just judging off their collegiate career and everything pre-draft, I probably would have drafted AJ. It might have gotten me fired, but.
Here's the thing, though. If I'm being honest, I would have drafted AJ too. And maybe I get fired because obviously Kyrie's had a Hall of Fame caliber career and we don't know what AJ is going to have. But I was being honest. I was looking at Kyrie as he was as a prospect, and I think he played 11 games. Was it 11 games? Or 12 games? And you can see the potential. But it really wasn't. It was such a small sample size. I came away thinking, yeah, he's talented, but I didn't feel like I honestly wouldn't have drafted him that high. So I might have got fired. You know what I mean? They would have been like, "Yo, Mo, are you crazy?" Like, fellas, I would have got that one wrong. Not that I didn't think he was worth being highly touted. But if you're going to compare him to how Dumbasta's been touted in his collegiate career and what we've seen from him, I would have taken AJ.
Yeah, hey, no, that's fair enough. Another fun one, Mo, that I have for us today. It's really simple. I just have one question for you. Do you want to start at the top or do you want to start at the bottom?
Well, let's start at the bottom because number 9 shouldn't even be on the list. So, it's an insult to everybody on the list that he's actually on the list. The funny part is they have him like the Miami Heat, Jason Williams, right? They have the Miami Heat. Well, that's the old, washed up Jason Williams. Like that's like even a worse case. Like he wasn't gonna make this list when he was young. He damn sure wasn't gonna make it as a role player on the Heat. Like, although I would argue that was his best stretch of basketball. What was that? 2 years. Look, how is Darren Williams not on here? Another name just came to mind. We're talking about the point guards of the 2000s. He's not better than Darren Williams. He's not better than Steve Francis. He's not even close. Not better than Nick Van Exel, who played into the 2000s. Like I think 2007, 2000. He's not better than him. He should not be like. It's not, the list overall isn't terrible, but just somebody that clearly has watched those stupid highlight videos said he got to be on the list. Like, no, he should not be there at all. He should not be there at all.
I saw Jason Williams at 9, and I almost just went full like Tony Allen when Rashad McCann started talking crazy. Just yo, boy, it's out the mud. We got Rashad McCann. No, it's funny. Like they got half of it correct. There should be a Williams on this list. It's just not Jason Williams.
Right. It's Darren Williams. Facts.
And also, like,
maybe that's what they meant. Look at that.
I got like a kind of an almost twofold problem at the top too. Number one, are we considering Allen Iverson a point guard all of a sudden, or because last time I remember, like it was Eric Snow on that team.
It's difficult, right? Obviously, AI is from the '96 class, but it's weird because look at a lot of the point guards in today's NBA. They're not. I think they're more combo guards than they are point guards. Like Dame Lillard is more of a combo guard. Steph is more of a combo guard. They're not primary facilitators. They're primarily scorers. And Allen Iverson was primarily a scorer. I never thought of AI as a point guard. I always thought of him as a 6'2" guard.
And that's kind of the thing. That's kind of where like a lot of these even like guards nowadays have a lot of nice playmaking skills to go along with their, scoring. AI was just definitely just straight up more a scorer than a passer and a playmaker. Obviously he could pass. I'm not saying he was an incapable passer, but like he was just definitely more wired as a 2 guard, so like I wouldn't even have him on this list. He'd be one over with the rest of the 2 guards. And of the 2000s, yeah, he'd probably be the third best 2 guard of the 2000s.
I was gonna say he still would do well, stacking up against the guards of the 2000s. I maybe they put him at point guard because if they put him at 2 guard, they think that would push him further down. Because obviously, if you ranked all the 2 guards of all time, he wouldn't rank that high. Not when you start factoring in Wade and McGrady, and he wouldn't rank that high. I think you got it right. I think anytime your point guard I think he's got like 5 or 6 seasons where he took 23 or 25 shots a game. You're not a point guard. You're a 2 guard.
Right. And then I'd say, and then too, Mo, like, look, I love Derrick Rose, but he only had 2 seasons in the 2000s. They were fun, but like, what did Derrick Rose do in the 2000s that would put him on? Like, if anything, if he's going to be on one of these lists, it would be for the 2010s, I think, not necessarily the 2000s.
I think that's fairer, a better assessment. Again, we got, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we got like a 3-year window of what Derrick Rose was before the injuries, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, one of those years was his MVP year, which is amazing. So that short sample size, like I said, if we were matching up his peak, which is weird because you can make an argument he didn't even reach his peak, but then that would be the argument. But he can't be one of the top point guards to me if all you have is look. If we're doing that, then we're opening the door up for putting guys like Brandon Roy in conversations. He had a 3-year window before he got hurt. I think you're right. Derrick Rose has a shorter sample size than Steve Francis. So yeah, I acknowledge how great he is, but I don't think you can put guys on here who only had like 2 or 3 years before they were done.
Yeah, and you know what? Just for fun, if I made a 2000s point guard list, here's how like mine would probably look compared to this. Probably be Nash, Kidd, CP3, Chauncey, Tony Parker, Gill, say Darren Williams, Gary Payton, Rondo, Baron Davis. If you want to argue that Derrick Rose should be on one of like those last 2 spots, maybe over like, Rondo or Baron Davis, I'll listen. But I'll
yeah,
like I said, I'll listen. I probably wouldn't go for it because I feel like Baron Davis is also just incredibly underrated.
yeah.
As the leader of the We Believe Warriors that knocked off Dirk and the 1-seeded Mavs. So
You remember that, the We Believe, what an awesome season. But yeah, look, I will listen to somebody make the case for Derrick Rose, but if you start off with, well, he won an MVP and most of the guys on there didn't win, that's a fair argument. But it said point guards of the 2000s. I'm thinking like that's like a career. As great as D Rose was, it was 3 years. And then obviously he played longer than 3 years, but we're talking about when he was a star. The bulk of his career, because of the injuries, he was more of a rotation player.
Yeah, hey, no, fair enough.
Oh, you know what? Jory, I'm with you 100%. I'm tired of, I don't know what the obsession is with Pat Bev. I tried to explain this to somebody, and they said that I was making their point because I said Harden is a more gifted all-around offensive player. I didn't say Wade wasn't a great offensive player. The argument I was making was that is Harden's claim to fame. But Dwayne Wade impacts both ends of the court. Harden, I think D Wade made like 3 All-NBA defensive teams and led the league in blocks multiple times as a guard. Dwayne Wade is the better basketball player, but James Harden is a greater offensive player. Those both can be true.
Did you see what? And then Pat Bev tried to start like inserting himself into the conversation. Like, all right, calm down, buddy. You see what he
said something dumb. He said, I think he posted his record versus Dwayne Wade.
He posted his team record against Wade and 3-point percentage, and I almost like had a hernia, dying of laughter when he did that. Because I'm like, no way, you just did that,
dude. A role player can't post his team record against a superstar. Like he don't even remember you. Like he's playing against the other team starters and stuff. And you're talking about like only Pat Bev would try to go there and look, I got a winning record against you. So you know what that means? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
No way in hell Rose is better than Tony Parker, especially for just ranking 2000s point guards. Yeah, absolutely not.
I agree.
Mo, I got to admit, he did get a good laugh out of me when he posted his team record at 3-point percentage.
He did that though, and then he pointed out like you couldn't even shoot. He pointed out his 3-point percentage. And I'm like, right, but you have the luxury of being a role player. You're not the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth option on any team you ever played for. Wade actually was the number one option for years. Obviously, until he and LeBron teamed up.
Did you see the other There's 2 like who's better convos going on right now, and one of them's like a legitimate one, and the other's just kind of stupidly funny.
By the way, I'm not hating on James Harden. When I say that he's one of the great offensive players, I think that's fact. But I don't think he's a better basketball player than Dwayne Wade.
James Harden, you know what's weird? James Harden was he never misses the playoffs. You could almost argue that James Harden was better at getting his teams to the big games than Dwayne Wade, but the problem is Dwayne Wade was just much better in the big games once he got there. So
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I think you could argue that, yeah, James Harden is a more talented basketball player, but the problem is, like, yeah, he gets his teams to the big games more often. He puts up more gaudy numbers than Wade, but once those big games start, like, Dwayne Wade obviously showed to really elevate his game every year. He did make the playoffs well.
I think
we
that's
know what Harden kind of does when he gets there.
I couldn't have said it better. James Harden is terrific. And if sports just ended on what you did in the regular season, then we would say James Harden is greater than Dwayne Wade, and we wouldn't even talk about it. It wouldn't be close. I think Harden led the league in scoring 3 times. I think he's led the league in assists 2 or 3 times. Like, he is an offensive genius. And you pointed out something that is a fact that nobody talks about, but he should get flowers for. James Harden has never missed the playoffs. The man has always been in the playoffs. So if we want to say he's never won the big one or he's never won a title, that's facts. But you can't call him a loser if everywhere he's gone, he's gotten his team into the playoffs. And to Dwayne Wade's credit, in big games, especially in the playoffs, Dwayne Wade is known for stepping up. That hasn't been a strength necessarily for James Harden. So again, look, if you just took their regular season numbers and just judged them on regular season, James Harden would be better than a lot of Hall of Famers if you just went on regular season accolades and numbers. He's got some insane numbers. But unfortunately, there is a postseason, and I judge the truly great players on, I love their regular season, but I'm ultimately always going to judge them on what they do in the postseason.
Now, Mo, let's say the Cavs, I honestly think if the Cavs do win a ring this year and Harden has a great postseason, then
he should retire.
All of a sudden the conversation in that does become a lot more interesting.
Look, I'm not here to argue. If he wins a title, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe James Harden's 36 or 37. And
36.
he's still giving like 20 and 10, still doing his thing. But if he wins a title, then you can't all the things that have kind of dogged him or brought him down, that's gone, and he would have that title in the bag to go along with those gaudy, huge, incredible numbers. You're right. That would be a different spin. And I think that would open up the conversation in a different way. I'm just talking about how I feel about both players right now today. Right now today, I think Wade is the better player. You can tell me Harden is more talented. I actually agree with the more talented part, but being more talented isn't a default to being better.
Yeah. Wade didn't quit in the playoffs. Like I said, also like Mo on Twitter, there's 2 debates going on. Like, one's a legitimate. Oh, there's 2 of them, and one of them's legit. For some reason we have rehashed the Kevin Garnett or Tim Duncan debate again. Which, you know what? Whatever. At least it makes a hell of a lot more sense than the other one. So that's one debate.
That's actually a close debate. It really is close. But when the debate ends, more times than not, I think Tim Duncan should have finished ahead of Kevin Garnett. And I'm a huge Kevin Garnett fan, but I don't think Kevin Garnett was more athletic than Timmy, and he could cover more ground defensively, but I don't think he was a better basketball player.
I think Tim Duncan was just better suited for that era, I think he was a better post defender, better isolation scorer. KG has a lot of fun stuff that would translate better to like the game nowadays.
Yes.
But back when they played, like, it was just tailor suited for Tim Duncan.
Yes, I couldn't have said that better. If Kevin Garnett came into today's NBA with his skill set, I actually think he would be even better. Even better. I think he would be putting up 8 or 9 assists a game. I think he'd be averaging around 25, 26 a game with 13 or 14. In today's game, with his ability and with the way the floor is spaced, I think Kevin Garnett is so except for the fact he doesn't shoot the three, I still think he would be dominant in today's game.
Oh, Kevin Garnett's just constantly fighting the analytics department every game. If he plays nowadays, yo, KG, take a step back. Oh Lord.
Yeah, they're not gonna love him because he's gonna do a lot of work from the free throw line in.
No, well, I say my favorite with Kevin Garnett is just his next favorite shot after that is the foot on the line deep two. It's the greatest thing ever how he just refused to take that one step back. But he was the money from there, so I guess it worked out for him.
That's facts.
Say, you ready for this other debate that people are trying to have? And I think it's the stupidest thing ever.
There's so many, but I didn't know there was as many as you said. Please bring it up. What's the other one?
Dame or Rajon Rondo?
Wait, Damian Lillard?
Yeah, that Dame.
So I didn't even know this was a thing. But what is the argument that Rondo's an elite defender, which is true. Rondo's a better playmaker, which is true. But Rondo also had the luxury of being flanked by 3 Hall of Famers. Like Dame went to a team and the team became Dame's. He was the center of that franchise's universe. I love Rondo. I think he's tremendous. And I think Rondo has an outside argument to be in the Hall of Fame. But there was never a team built around him. I'm absolutely going to take Damian Lillard over Rondo.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just weird to me because and some of the points were just absurd, Mo. Like somebody said, yeah, Rondo had a higher peak than Dame. I'm like, even you don't believe that.
A higher peak, what, with assist? Sure.
Right, and like the years he made didn't even make sense. Because the first one he said higher peak, I thought he was going to be like, yeah, 2012, 2013. Like, yeah, he had that weird, like, 8th place MVP finish, but I don't really take too much stock into that one.
Right.
But he's like, no, yeah, like his peak was 0809. I'm like, 0809 Rondo? Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's such a weird debate. Like, I think people this is almost like the point where ring culture kind of messes with the sport too much. Like,
yes.
All because Rondo has 2 rings to 0, that does not put him in the same stratosphere as Damian Lillard.
It does not. And so I'm not big on people using if a player has won rings and he's being compared against another great player that didn't win rings, I'm not the deciding factor for me isn't that one guy has rings over the other. It's what kind of career you had, and when you got the rings, were you the bus driver or were you on the bus? Because a lot of guys have rings that were just on the bus, and Rondo was terrific, and he's a big part of why they won. But again, at his peak with the Celtics, Pierce, Garnett, Allen, and then later with the Lakers, he was a role player, not the same thing. Dame was always the main guy, except obviously when he went to Milwaukee. But I'm sorry, Rondo's a 2-time champion. He's not better than Damian Lillard.
No, and I completely agree with that. Like it was so weird. It completely threw me off that was a real conversation that was happening.
That is wild. It is wild.
Let's say another fun tidbit that happened today. Con Knippel officially holds the Hornets record for most 3-pointers in the season, passing Kemba Walker. He is 261st. So congratulations to Con Knippel for that one.
Con is doing his thing, man. I think he's gonna own that record on that franchise for years to come. My guess is he'll come back next year and be that much better. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this young man's career continues to go, how he continues to develop, because I do think Con Knippel's going to be a guy that makes more than a couple of all-star teams himself.
Hey, you know what? I completely agree with that. I like that. Love to see what he's doing. I'm excited to see what happens in the playoffs. Say it.
This is the first year in a long time that I'm like, I can't wait to see the Hornets in the playoffs. It's weird to say it, but I'm excited for it.
Right? Like, this is gonna be a fun playoffs. Like, the East is, normally we talk about the East being weak, but this year, even like the 10th seed has 40 wins. Like, this is definitely a much better East than years prior, so it should be an absolute dogfight on who gets out of that one.
Agreed 100%. I think the East is there's so much parity in the East that I believe this playoffs in the East and the West, at least one lower seed is going to take out a higher seed, maybe two, but at least one.
Well, let's see. Right now, if we were to start the playoffs tomorrow, at least we got the Cavs and Knicks. That's probably pretty locked in. Knicks are 2 games behind the Celtics, but 2 games above the Cavs. So,
dang, that's a brutal first round series. Dang, Cavs.
Yeah.
Knicks. Wow.
So I'm guessing that sticks. Say the 2-5 matchup. Right now, say, yeah, it'd be like Celtics and Hawks. And then
not an easy matchup.
So yeah, no, it's gonna be a good one. Say I know, like I said, I'm looking forward to see what the Hawks do too. Hey, you know what's been interesting on the Hawks? He looked good the first couple of games, and now some fans are starting to turn on Jonathan Kuminga already. It seems
because.
It's funny because he's been inconsistent. Like, he started out hot, and then he's been going through a rough stretch since then. It's weird to me because it's like, this is just kind of who he is. I don't know what your expectations were. He's always been inconsistent, on the more inconsistent side.
Yeah, but I think that's why him coming off the bench, I think that's the perfect role for him in the NBA as an instant offense kind of guy. And there are going to be nights where the three's not falling for him and he struggles a little bit more than others, but I still think he's a good pickup for the Hawks as long as he embraces his role. And look, speaking of the Hawks, if the Celtics play them, that's not an easy series for the Celtics by far. We're talking a lot about how Jalen Johnson is playing, but you see what Dyson Daniels is doing. More importantly, you see what Okongwu was doing. Okongwu is turned into Karl Anthony Towns. The dude is shooting a 3 at a high level, and I mean, he shoots multiple. He's about 4 or 5 threes a game. Like, he's extended his range. Then you throw in what you're getting from CJ, veteran leadership, instant buckets. Our guy, Nikhil Alexander Walker, is having a career year. Like, the Hawks are going to be a tough out.
No, absolutely. And hey, I'm sorry for what's happening to your Lakers right now, down 25-9 against the Thunder.
I didn't want you to mention that on the air, but you know what? I'll take it on the chin. We're boys. Here's the thing about that. And I'm honest as a Laker fan. Was I excited that they went 15-2 in March? Of course I was. That LeBron has embraced a completely different role. And it seems like because they all have defined roles, they're better. They've been a little bit more connected on defense. But I told everybody that I've always been consistent. I said, what the Lakers have been really good at this year, Brett, is they've beaten the teams they were supposed to beat over and over again. And a real test was going to be this game tonight against Oklahoma City, not because it decides the championship or nothing like that, but this is when you step up in weight class and you're trying to make a statement. Unfortunately, it looks like the Thunder are stepping up in weight, because what people don't forget is, because San Antonio is literally nipping at OKC's heels, OKC's got to keep winning. They have to keep winning because they haven't secured the number 1 seed yet, because the Spurs are literally just 2 games behind them. So this game matters to them, period. And then they got to turn around and play the Lakers again. I think it's next Tuesday.
It's funny with this game. I'm not even like are the Lakers really doing much wrong? Not really, but when sometimes guys just have a night, and when Lou Dort starts out 4 for 4 from the field and 3 of 3 from behind the arc, there really isn't much you can do about that, except just pray that it's just not his night all night.
Yeah, look, do I think Lou Dort's going to continue to shoot at a high level throughout the whole game? Uh, his numbers say no. He's a streaky 3-point shooter at best, but he's not. He's definitely not somebody I'd be afraid to leave open. He's hitting them now, but the game's not over yet. It just starts off like it's over. It's not over yet. So I think the Lakers, because of that 3-headed monster, they can compete with everybody. The question I have for them is when you go up against teams like Oklahoma City, go up against teams like the Spurs, who are not just younger than you, but they're much more athletic than you are, that becomes the challenge. They haven't faced anybody like them during this run. So it's an interesting matchup. As a Laker fan, I just want the Lakers to go into the postseason healthy. And I've got modest goals. Win a first round series.
Oh, fair. Hey, I think we could have something, Dieng. I think he's got. I think he'd be a nice role player for us. Dort always shoots lights out against LA. I don't know why. Yeah, that's fair. There you go. Do you want them to pay Reeves the huge contract?
No. But if I know the Lakers like I think I do, they're going to pay Reeves a huge contract. I think Reeves has taken a lot of steps in his development. He's a really good player. He's definitely a legitimate all-star caliber player. I'm not sold on the fact that he's a legitimate franchise number 2 guy. I don't know if that's who he is. I wouldn't pay him that much. I don't think he's one of those. I think he's nice, but I just wouldn't do it. Look, LeBron has taken a back seat to him, but not because Austin Reeves is better than LeBron, because he's not. Even now, he's not better than LeBron. But you want Luka to have a running mate. LeBron's realistically, I do think this is his last year with the Lakers. If Luka's going to have a running mate, you're going to have to give Reed the money. I just think giving Reeves that much money is going to hurt you down the road with the cap.
Yeah, hey, I know Jory's praying that it's LeBron's last year with the Lakers, so
yeah, I'm sure.
It seems like she's been waiting to get out of that deal.
Yeah, look, knowing LeBron, I don't think he's done playing, but I don't think there's like 5 teams he could go to. I think if he leaves the Lakers, he's either going to go to Cleveland or he's going to go to New York.
Let's say, by the way, do you see we have another guy ineligible for awards today, and Anthony Edwards?
Oh, Ant's ineligible, huh?
Okay. So you know what's interesting? If he plays every single game for the rest of the year, he'll end the year with like exactly 65 games. However, one rule that is like, I believe it's like 20 minutes. You have to play at least 20 minutes in each game.
Okay.
And there's one game where you played like 3 minutes and left with injury.
Oh. Wow.
So it's one of those, like, he could still hit 65 if he plays the rest of it out, but because he left that one game after 3 minutes, he's not going to qualify for the awards.
Yeah. Like I said, I really wish the league office would. I'm not saying out and out get rid of the 65 game rule, but amend it a little bit, reform it to where you're a little bit more flexible for guys who have legitimate injuries and have played 57 or 58 games. Like, don't penalize them when they've played more than half the games.
Oh yeah, like I said, I feel like there should just be like an overall minutes number you can hit too. I guess it's weird stuff. Like they're talking about, like, for example, I saw a fun stat where it's like LeBron has played more minutes than Wemby, but obviously Wemby's probably going to qualify and be in the running for awards like MVP and whatnot.
Right.
And I'm not saying if like LeBron qualifies, he's in those convos. But if this, if player A qualifies for these awards, well, plays less minutes than overall than player B. I don't know. I feel like player B should have a fair chance at awards too at that point.
Agreed. I agree.
So yeah, the MVP convo for Wemby is interesting too. It's coming down to the stretch, and I look, Mo, I love Wemby, but the same thing that I kind of complained about last year with Draymond Green, all of a sudden just happened with Wemby. He's like third or fourth on most people MVP ballots, and then he comes on and goes, maybe I should win MVP because I play really good defense, and everyone's like, you know what, you're right, you do play good defense, and you're a demon on offense. Next day after that interview, he's like all of a sudden the favorite to win MVP, and I'm just like, I feel like if he's the favorite, he probably just should have been the favorite before that interview. But you know what? I wouldn't be mad if he won it. But it's that little like how it happened is kind of annoying. Like,
Yeah. Look, I'm good with Wemby if he wins it, but like you, I heard how that went down, and I'm like, he said he wanted it, and then all the people that all of a sudden put him number one for MVP were all using the finally we have a superstar who openly says it matters to him and that he wants it. That's what we need, somebody who wants to be like, I'm sure Shea wants to be MVP and Joker wants to be MVP. Do they go around saying it or campaigning for it? No, a lot of guys don't do that. The fact that Wemby openly said he wanted it, I think that's cool, but I don't think that should give him extra points towards being MVP just because he wants it and he said he wanted it. I think that he has an MVP case, but I don't think he has a lock case. I think SGA is the king, and you have to beat a man. You got to beat the man. Wemby's having a terrific season. SGA is having a terrific season. But if the Thunder finish the season with the number one record in the West and probably in the league, SGA is going to be MVP again. He will be the best player on the team with the best record, back to back. I feel like they're treating SGA the way with the way they treat Giannis and the way they treat Joker, which is weird because he only won one MVP, but they're already treating him like they've got SGA fatigue. And it almost feels like they just want to give it to Wemby. I'm on board if Victor's going to become the face of the league, but just let it happen organically. You know what I mean? And if he becomes MVP, it wouldn't stun me. He's right there in position. But again, it should be natural, not this weird campaigning where everybody's flipped and said, well, because he wants it. That's different. We've never had nobody that wanted it. I just think that's kind of odd. That, like you said, he stated how he felt about it, and the very next day, everybody had him. Wemby's taking the lead. I mean, it wasn't just one person; it's on every network. Suddenly, Brian Windhorst was like, "You got to give it's Wemby. It's Wemby's." I'm like, wow. Shea did nothing wrong. He just didn't say he wanted to be MVP, and it cost him, I guess.
Yeah, they asked him the same question. He just said, "Look at the tape." Like, I feel like that's a perfect answer. Like, yeah, just watch me play and make your own call on that one.
I like that answer. That's a great answer.
I will say with Wemby, though, I think Wemby, like, doing the things he's done, Mo, going forward, especially as he enters into his prime, which is scary to think about that he's not there yet, I feel like if you want to beat him out for MVPs in the future, you pretty much just have to be perfect. Because if this dude's really going to end up becoming a top 10 offensive weapon in the league or somewhere in that range to go with his defense, like his defense alone has already caused ripples in the MVP race because now all of a sudden everybody's hyper fixating on defense, which is awesome. But yeah, no, if you're going to beat Wemby, especially as he enters his prime for these MVP awards, it's going to take some truly all-timer of seasons because he's just truly a monster.
I see all the potential that he has, and I see when he's been to this point, and I'm beyond impressed. But what he and the Spurs do in the postseason is going to be interesting. because I do think it'll greatly impact what he does going forward as an MVP candidate. I don't think they've been tested yet. And I'm one of those people that believe, even though they don't have a lot of experience, I still think they have a legitimate shot to win the West. But I also think, could they lose in an earlier round? Yes, because they don't have that experience and they haven't been knocked on their ass yet. They have no one has broken their heart yet. Them winning a title this year would be that would be huge to me, because they would be skipping a stage that a lot of teams go through, where your team elevates and you become a title contender, and then you lose to one of the better teams in a tough series, and all of that helps you progress and develop until you take over and you become that team. And what the Spurs are proposing to do is that I think we can skip all that and get to the finals. I think they can, but I don't think it's a lock. I think playoff basketball is completely different from regular season basketball. And while I think the Spurs are talented and they're deep, if they have a kryptonite, I would say their shooting can be their kryptonite. I think that's their kryptonite. Castle and Harper, even during their jumpers can come and go. Champagny is probably their most consistent shooter, but he didn't shoot that much. So yeah, I think outside of Oklahoma City, the Spurs have the next best chance to win the West. I just don't know if it's a lock or not. I think that Denver is still got something to say about this. I don't think the Timberwolves are going to go on a deep run this year. It's weird because they're almost the same team, but they still seem like a lesser version of themselves. I really do think this is all about San Antonio and Oklahoma City in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it feels like one of the biggest difference between this year and last year with the Spurs is it feels like maybe the biggest difference is their guards have figured out to look for Wemby on these roles. I remember last year, for example, watching the Spurs and getting annoyed so much because I'm like, dude, this dude's 7'5". Just every time he rolls in the basket, just throw it up. He'll get it.
Fact.
And it feels like this year they finally figured out, like, hey, this guy's 7'5". If I just give it to him going downhill, he'll get it. I'd say I felt so bad for the Warriors last night, having to pretty much rule out their entire big man rotation. Poor Draymond was trying his best, but yeah, he went for 27 and 10 in the first half, and there just wasn't anything they could do about that.
Yeah, I watched the first half, and then I didn't watch the rest of the game because I'd seen enough. Look, like you said, he's phenomenal, and the sky's the limit for where he can go, not just as an individual player, but where he can lead the Spurs as a franchise. Where we're talking, he could kind of do a Duncan. Let's say they go to 5 NBA finals in the next 10 years and they win 4 of those or something along those lines. I think that's the kind of talent we're talking about here. The upside for him is he's got his guys flanking him. Harper and Castle, they're going to get better too. They're not done. They're going to get better. And you still have Devin Vassell, who's a young guy. He's 25. What's the other guy that comes off the bench? Who I love.
I'd say Cartier Bryant has been great for them too.
I love that kid, Cartier Bryant. Like they're a young team with a couple of veterans sprinkled in. You need that with a Harrison Barnes here. They want to say De'Aaron Fox, but hell, Fox is 27, 28. He's a young veteran, if you will. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to playoff basketball because, like I said, it is a completely different animal. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's funny too. I thought Draymond probably did the only thing you could hope to do against Wemby. He did force him to take, a decent amount of jumpers. It's just like last night. It feels like the problem is if the jumpers are falling, then really what's there left to do? There's nothing you can really do. I think Wemby's almost like biggest weakness is one that the bigs nowadays are going to have trouble exploiting. Like you can bump Wemby off of his spot, but a lot of the bigs that can do it, he's too fast for them. So, like I say, he'll be a problem going forward. I know when I do my prediction list of top 30 players, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tempting to put Wemby at close to number one, if not number one next year.
And I understand that. Like I said, I don't. Anybody that wants to put him number one, I'm not going to argue with that. Now, does that mean he's going to end up being the best player by default? I don't know, because Kate Cunningham will get better. I think Anthony Edwards, there's things he can do to get better at. There are other guys that are developing and coming on the scene, so it's going to be interesting. Look, the young man out in Portland, Avia, has stepped his game up. So I think Wemby will be the number one guy going into next season. But I think you have a lot of proud veteran players like Joker, like Giannis, like Jason Tatum. It's weird because I feel like all those guys, there's the what do you call it? There's the old guard, which is LeBron and Harden and Kawhi and Steph and all those guys. And then there's the middle guard, and that's Tatum, that's Giannis, that's Joker. They're all in their mid-20s or late 20s. They're like tweeners. They're not old, and they're not necessarily kids either. So I think the middle guard is going to have a lot to say about MVPs. I don't think Joker's done. I'm not writing Giannis off. And I think if Jason Tatum can come all the way back, why wouldn't he have a shot at winning at least one MVP?
No, absolutely. And say, Mo, I just thought about it. Another fun thing that just happened recently. I almost wanted to label it as a second "Do Better with Mo Better" because Mo, what's Orlando doing? And what I mean by that is, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Once I bring it up, they faced the Toronto Raptors, and they allowed a 31-0 scoring run against them.
I saw that.
The Raptors aren't that good on offense. They shouldn't be going on 31-0 runs against you. That was maybe the most pathetic thing I have ever seen because it was just an effort thing too. Like, missed shot, get out hustled, and boom. Like, half of the buckets it felt like was just Scotty Barnes beating everybody down the court. And now, hey, look, he has Javon Carter underneath because, like, Carter would be the only one to get back, or the smaller guards, and easy 2 points. And then Mamu went on a heater. It was a fun watch if you're a Raptors fan, but from the Magic side, Mo, I don't know how Mosley survives after this season.
I'm not calling for nobody's job, but I think that Jamal Mosley as a head coach is taking them as far as he can take them. And I think and look, when you watch their offense, it's just a series of isolation setups. They've got to get a coach in there with a system that can bring out the best in everybody. And you have to be able to put together your best five that work together collectively. And I don't know if that best five is Franz and Paolo together. Maybe you stagger their minutes and you bring Franz off the bench or something. I don't know. But that duo that should be a great bookend duo, they don't necessarily work well. No, go ahead.
I'd say it's funny because people will bring up by the way, SGA has my MVP vote. I keep forgetting to address this one. I have SGA.
Same.
But it's funny with the Magic, too, because they traded for Desmond Bane, and people keep referencing the trade. I'm just like, dog, like, Desmond Bane's giving them 24 and 4 on insanely efficient shooting. Like, he's giving them exactly what they traded for. The problem is almost just everything else. And it's funny. You know who they might have to move on from to bring more balance to the offense? It feels like they might end up having to move on. If they don't want to move on from Paulo, I feel like it has to be Jalen Suggs. I don't know. It's weird in the sense that it feels like that they need to balance out their offense together, or balance out their offense better. And it feels like if they're trying to improve their offense, if they're not going to move on from Banchero or Wagner, then the next maybe most awkward fit is Jalen Suggs. He's just a weird one. I love his defense, but his offense is brutal. He almost looks like the like the NBA embodiment of Cam Scatabo at times, the way he's trying to barrel through people. And then when he's not barreling through people, it's just step back three, which is always off the mark. So
it's funny you mentioned Suggs. In a lot of ways, I feel like Suggs, he's got a lot of Marcus Smart isms in him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's a similarity to them to where you love them because the defense impacts games and they're steady. And yet offensively, you hate it when they shoot a lot because neither one of them are good or consistent shooters. This is what I'll say. If they give up on Suggs, what's the line? One man's trash is another man's treasure. I think Jalen Suggs goes to another contender and he makes that other contender even better. The only difference is I think going to another contender, Jalen Suggs will be in a different role. I don't think he's your starting point guard. I think Jalen Suggs is your first guy off the bench.
yeah, it's his brand of offense is almost it's slightly too awkward to fit around ball dominant stars. But hey, you know what? Like I said, it'll be interesting. Maybe a new coach can help optimize him even more. Yeah. Hey, and of course we had the Hall of Fame induction, or the Hall of Famers were announced. So we have Doc Rivers, Mari Stoudemire, Ella Donadon, Candace Parker, Deli Don. Yeah, that didn't come off the tongue right, but say congratulations to all the Hall of Famers. And look, I feel like people are forgetting how good Amari Stoudemire was, Mo, because I've seen people now start to go like, well, Anthony Davis is a lock if they're letting Amari Stoudemire in. Like, well, Amari Stoudemire wasn't that guy. Right. Like he was a lock before someone like Amari, but also Amari's just an insanely good basketball player.
He was, and he's probably one of the most explosive bigs. We're talking about a 6'10" guy who was a quick, explosive leaper, one of the great finishers in NBA history. The confusion I have, it's not that I'm telling anybody Amari shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I'm fine with that. I guess where I'm conflicted in is if Amari got in, why wouldn't Blake Griffin get in? Look at their careers. Look at their numbers. Look at their accolades. They're almost identical. And so, look, I'm not even a huge Blake Griffin fan, but I'm just calling a spade. If Amari's a Hall of Fame player, then Shawn Kemp's a Hall of Fame player, and Blake Griffin's a Hall of Fame player. So I'm not knocking Amari, but I'm just saying if he's in, both of them are more than worthy to be in as well. So, look, I think Blake will get in eventually. I'm just shocked he didn't get in with Amari because I think that they're, in terms of their productivity and what they did, it was kind of similar.
Say, I you know what's funny? I almost felt bad for Amari because he almost felt like it feels like he should have more like all NBA teams, but the period he came up in was just a brutal time, especially for trying to be an all NBA forward or center, which they flipped him on the ballot multiple times in that regard. But
this is true.
It just feels like, especially like when they put him at forward, it's like, all right, you just have to beat out, Duncan, KG, LeBron starting to come up as a forward, and just a brutal time.
He got a raw deal. He had to beat out Duncan and KG and I think C Webb. Like there were a lot of great power forwards when Omari was coming up, and some talented bigs. But I'm with you. He's definitely deserving of being in the Hall of Fame, and I think Blake will eventually get in as well. Like I think you're right. When people say Amari shouldn't get in, or you say something which I think is kind of dumb, and you say, well, if he gets in, Anthony. If Amari didn't get in at all, Anthony Davis was getting in. Like we're giving Amari his flowers, but we're also establishing the obvious. Anthony Davis is better than Amari. Yes, he's getting in. And I don't know why you would be disappointed here's a spoiler alert. You know who else is going to get in? And this will really make you sick to your stomach. Kawhi's going to get in too. Kawhi's going to the Hall of Fame. Or just wrap your minds around it.
Yeah, and like when they're trying to break down a Hall of Fame case, especially like I said, I feel like one of the biggest things they have with Amari is well, he's only like a 4 or 5 time All NBA. I feel like if that's an argument, my counter argument is look at the position because when it was positionless, if you were like quote unquote one of the top three bigs who weren't getting in, and Amari just happens to come at the same time, you got like Shaq, Ben Wallace were taking up all NBA spots, and then Yao Ming comes in, takes a couple, Jermaine O'Neal.
Don't forget,
Just, just,
yeah,
just a rough stretch of talent to compete with in that era to try
that's
to
a
get
good.
one of those all NBA spots.
That's a good one. People sleep on. Look, I don't have his numbers right in front of me, but I think Jermaine O'Neal was like a 5 or 6 time All Star and probably made a couple of All NBA teams too. So, yeah, why isn't Jermaine O'Neal getting more Hall of Fame love?
Say I that's why it drives me insane a little bit when people like start counting people's all NBAs against him. Another guy that they do that, like I've seen people do that with too much for my liking, is they'll be like, "Oh, Reggie Miller was really that good. Then why did he make more All NBA teams?" I'm like, buddy, he went up against the same time as like the guard position. You're looking at MJZ, Gary Payton, Dominique Wilkins. Like you catch a little bit of magic with Reggie Miller. Like it was just a brutal time for players to get those All NBA spots, especially when it was still by position.
Agreed. I think that's what killed Reggie. That he didn't come up when it was positional into basketball because had he, I have no doubt he would have made more All NBA teams.
No, absolutely. Say, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Hey, and then of course, more. I guess this would be college women's hoops. Audie Crooks has entered the transfer portal, so we'll see where she ends up next year. It'll be interesting.
That's gonna be a blast.
Say, I will say I'm interested to see what happens with Audie Crooks if somebody takes her at the next level. She's like such a force on the offensive end. Defense will be quite a challenge for her at the next level, and that's what I'm curious to see how she adjusts to that because big part she was a huge obviously she was been their biggest offensive weapon, but man, when they got knocked out of that tournament, they were just bigs were just spraying jumpers right over the top. So I'm curious to see like if what how schematically do you try to adjust to that for next year when you get her defensively next year?
She's got to get with some coaches and just work on her lateral quickness better. She got to be able to, as Perkins would say, move them puppies better. Just get you don't. I'm not saying be a lockdown defender, but just be a competitive team defender. If you're a good team defender, look that goes a long way. If you're a good team defender, you don't have to be a one-on-one lockdown person. But yeah, she got to get with a couple assistant coaches and work on her lateral quickness. I think that'll go a long way in improving what she does defensively.
No, absolutely. And of course, before we get out of here, Mo, Blazers executives were suspended because apparently they spent like 2 years tampering with Yang Hansen. Their draft pick was this year. I'd say, Mo, it's funny how like randomly like pick and choosy they are to punish people. And this is, by the way, when they're talking about fixing the tanking rules, one of the ideas was we're going to let Adam Silver make the call on if they're tanking or not. And then you see stuff like this, like, okay, yeah, they were tanking. You suspended them and gave them $100,000 fine. For the Utah Jazz, you thought they were, you said they were tanking. You just, fined and suspended them. But hey, what's the latest update on the, aspiration case with the Clippers in LA? Like it just feels like all these decisions are making me less and less confident that Adam Silver can remain unbiased and make these calls.
Doesn't it feel like things are getting away from Silver? Do you know what I mean? Like the case with the Clippers, they said that was going to be resolved by the All-Star break. But buddy, we're way past that. Let's go. Let's go. let's do the tough thing. Whatever it is, bring it out. I feel like Adam Silver has tried so hard to be a player's commissioner that he's lost some credibility to a fault. I think he has. It is okay to be the strong-handed commissioner that, let's say, the players don't necessarily love, but they respect you. That was David Stern. I think Silver's too concerned with being liked rather than making the tough decisions. And so I don't want Adam Silver to have anything to do with deciding who's tanking or not. Dude, appoint that to somebody underneath you who's a little less biased, if you will. It's funny because his reign as commissioner started off really good, and I thought there were some positives, but I think he's kind of regressed. Maybe he's overstepped a little bit. It's weird because you don't change commissioners very often, and I'm not saying they're going to move. They're not move. They love Silver, but I do think that look, the NBA, like any business, is a bottom line business. If your ratings are down multiple consecutive years in a row, and you're the guy at the helm, we ain't firing the players. Somebody getting fired.
Yeah, say with his like, let's say it's funny with his tenure. It almost feels like that he had like almost a layup to start because it's like you come in and you immediately have to make the ruling on the Donald Sterling case, which quite frankly he made the right call.
He did.
But to me, it was just a very obvious and right call to make. So, and then, yeah, just almost kind of ever since that, everybody loved him and just slowly regressed. So we'll see if he can we can bounce back. I know why the executives love him. He's obviously just kind of maximizing the value of the league every chance he gets with all these different streaming deals and whatnot. But say we'll see if the ratings and everything can keep up over the next few years.
You know what? I tell you what, if they can't go back up now, then the league is in trouble. But I feel like because we have Wemby and we've got the Spurs and we've got the Thunder and we've got Cade and some of the young teams out in the East, I think the ratings should be going back up. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, but no, that's all I had for us today. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
I appreciate the chat. Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you, Jory, and everybody else for coming through and joining Brett and I on a Thursday night, talking some hoops. We appreciate you guys. Please join us again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, you can check us out Monday for Meaty Boys podcast. It'll be a fun one, and then another fun edition of And One. Look, once the season actually finishes, I'll give you my all NBA predictions. But Mo, I'm at a point with that where I was going to do it this week, but I kind of now want to just wait and see who's actually eligible for this award before trying to figure it out.
That's fair.
But yeah, hey, that being said, we thank everybody for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week.